Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really quite interesting for anyone who works in a team environment. Placebo pipes. Now, that might sound a bit strange, maybe like some kind of, I don't know, office gadget.
Right.
But we're not talking about actual pipes or even about directly sending, new information. It's more subtle.
It is. Think of them as internal communication prompts, tools designed specifically to build that shared understanding, get everyone aligned.
Getting everyone on the same wavelength, basically.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've pulled from several sources. There's pasted text, placebo pipes, enhancing team effectiveness and problem solving, another on fostering understanding, one on psychological team dynamics, and also the power of placebo pipes in collaboration.
Quite a bit to draw on.
Yeah, and our aim here is really to cut through to how these, well, seemingly indirect methods can actually make a big difference in how teams work together and solve problems.
So consider this your shortcut to getting, well informed on this. Might be some surprising stuff here.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's really define this term then, placebo pipes. What are we talking about at its core?
Okay, so fundamentally they're what we could call meta-communicative prompts.
Meta-communicative.
Yeah, like communicating about the communication itself. It's not the main message per se, but it's a signal, a prompt that helps guide how that message lands.
Right.
Think of it like a specific check-in designed purely to make sure everyone has that same baseline understanding of what's going on.
Okay, and the sources, they give an example, don't they, to make it concrete?
They do. A really good one. Imagine a team, right? They're facing a pretty complex problem. A placebo pipe here could be, well, something as simple as asking everyone on the team to just quickly say, in their own words, what they see as the main challenge.
Okay, so it's not about dumping a load of new facts or stats on them.
Not necessarily, no. The actual content of what people say might not be new to anyone. The real value, the power, is in the act of doing it. It serves some really crucial functions for that team dynamic.
Okay, let's unpack those functions then.
Yeah.
What are the key things a placebo pipe actually achieves?
Well, first off, it's a powerful alignment check.
Alignment check.
Yeah. Just by asking people to state their perspective, you immediately see where the little differences in understanding lie. Or maybe, sometimes, big differences.
Yeah, I could see that. Like a quick calibration.
Exactly. Are we all pointing north or north by northwest? It surfaces that.
Makes sense. You could easily leave a meeting thinking everyone's agreed, but they all have slightly different pictures.
Precisely. Which leads right into the second function. Building a shared mental model.
Okay.
When you hear how your colleagues see the problem, it helps piece together a more unified picture for everyone. You see the overlaps, maybe spot gaps in your own thinking too.
Like everyone adding their piece to the same puzzle.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's psychological safety. This is a big one. Well, by making it okay, even encouraged, to share your current understanding, even if it feels a bit shaky or incomplete.
Without feeling judged.
Exactly. Without worrying you'll look like you're not keeping up. That creates a much safer space for people to actually speak up.
Because nobody wants to be that person, right? The one who seems lost.
Nobody. So this lowers that barrier significantly. It encourages people to take small cognitive risks, maybe voice an idea that's not fully formed yet.
Which is where real insights can come from.
Absolutely. And the final point here is process awareness.
Process awareness.
Yeah, it kind of subtly reinforces the idea that how the team works together matters, that taking the time to ensure understanding is valued. It's part of the process before just, rushing ahead.
So it's less about the raw data being shared and more about how the team is making sense of it together.
You've got it. It's that connection piece. Connecting on understanding before trying to build on it. That just makes everything that follows smoother.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for the immediate situation. But let's zoom out a bit. How do these placebo pipes actually help a team become, more effective overall, better at solving problems in the long run?
This is where it gets really powerful, I think. One of the biggest long-term benefits is just enhanced shared understanding. Consistently.
Right.
If you keep doing these checks, you massively reduce the risk of people working off different assumptions. Everyone knows the goal, understands the plan, so efforts are much more synchronized. Focused.
With less wasted effort pulling in slightly different directions.
Exactly. No more heading off slightly cross-purpose. And, when people actually articulate their understanding, it leads to improved information processing. Just hearing the same idea explained slightly differently by a colleague can suddenly highlight a nuance you missed.
Like seeing it from a different angle suddenly click something.
Precisely. Or it might reveal a gap in someone's thinking that they wouldn't have noticed otherwise.
Okay. And I guess if everyone's clearer, it must, reduce the mental effort involved?
Yes, significantly. It reduces cognitive load.
How so?
Well, you're not constantly juggling different interpretations in your head, trying to figure out what everyone else means.
Right, that background processing task.
Exactly. It frees up that mental bandwidth to actually focus on the problem itself. Think about it, if half the team thinks the goal is X and the other half thinks it's Y.
Chaos.
Or at least a lot of wasted mental energy trying to reconcile things subconsciously. A placebo pipe clarifies that up front.
That sounds like a huge relief, especially for complex stuff.
It really is. Plus, they act a bit like an early warning system. You get early identification of issues.
Keeps understanding surface sooner.
Exactly. Disagreements, confusion,
Yeah.
it tends to come out much earlier before it grows into a major roadblock or a conflict.
So proactive versus reactive.
Absolutely. Saves a lot of hassle later. And over time, just the act of doing this meta communication, it builds stronger team cohesion.
Just the habit of checking in.
Yeah, it builds trust. It reinforces that psychological safety we mentioned, and that encourages even more open communication. It becomes a positive feedback loop.
I can see that. It sort of oils the wheels of interaction.
It really does. And when you have that clear shared understanding and strong cohesion, what do you get?
Better ideas.
More creative solutions. People feel safer building on each other's thoughts, taking those creative leaps, because they know everyone's starting from the same baseline.
Different perspectives become additive, not confusing.
Exactly. You're all speaking the same project language. And finally, it leads to more efficient resource allocation.
Because everyone knows the plan.
Precisely. You know the goals, you understand the strategy, so it's clear who should do what. Less overlap, better use of everyone's skills.
Wow. So it really does sound like these seemingly small things have quite a ripple effect.
They really do. One source uses the analogy of lubricant for the collaborative engine.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah, it's not the engine itself, but it reduces the friction, makes everything run smoother, more efficiently, which, ultimately leads to better problem solving.
Okay, let's get into the psychology a bit more. Why do these seemingly simple things work so well? What's happening psychologically speaking?
Right. Well, from a psychological view, they tap into some really fundamental principles. First, there's the sheer power of belief and expectation.
Like a medical placebo?
Kind of, yeah. If a team believes that taking time to check understanding is valuable, that belief itself can drive positive engagement and outcomes. They expect it to help, so they engage more fully, and it does help.
So the buy-in itself is part of the mechanism.
Absolutely. Then there's the aspect of enhanced communication and ritual.
Ritual.
Yeah, these pipes often become regular routines, right? Check-ins, ways of starting discussions. These rituals, even if they don't always produce brand new info, create dedicated spaces for connection. They strengthen bonds, build familiarity. It's that regular rhythm of interaction.
Right, that consistency builds comfort and predictability.
Exactly. And these practices can also gain symbolic value and shared meaning.
What do you mean?
Well, the act of, say, always starting with what's everyone's understanding might come to symbolize the team's commitment to clarity or respect or thoroughness.
Ah, so doing it reinforces the team's values.
Precisely. It becomes part of the team's identity, how you operate, like a shared code.
Okay.
Also, introducing a placebo pipe helps direct the team's focus and attention.
Like a spotlight.
Sort of. Even if the check-in itself doesn't solve the task, the act of engaging with it forces everyone to pause and think deliberately about that specific point, the goal, the challenge, whatever it is, which can lead to indirect improvements just by focusing collective thought.
Makes sense. Concentrating the mind.
Exactly. And in situations that feel complex or uncertain, these practices can foster a sense of control and agency.
By doing something structured.
Yes. Actively participating in a process like stating your understanding can make team members feel more empowered, less like they're just reacting to chaos. It gives a sense of proactive engagement.
Right, a feeling of managing the complexity.
Precisely. And finally, there's the meta-communication aspect, which we touched on but is worth highlighting psychologically.
The communication about communication.
The discussions around the placebo pipe, how people explain their views, the questions they ask can reveal so much.
Like underlying assumptions?
Exactly. Or communication styles, levels of engagement. You learn a lot about the team's dynamics just by observing how they engage with these simple prompts.
So you aim for shared understanding, but you also get this bonus insight into how the team communicates.
You do. It's quite revealing. But there's an ethical side here, too, mentioned in the sources.
Oh.
Yeah, it's crucial that these aren't used deceptively. Transparency is key. It's about genuinely fostering understanding, not tricking people. Trust is paramount.
Good point. It has to be authentic. Okay, so we've seen the immediate functions, the psychological underpinnings. What about the really long game? If a team consistently uses these placebo pipes, what happens over months or years?
Well, the long-term impacts are really where you see the deep cultural shifts. One major outcome is stronger foundational trust.
Just from these regular checks?
Yes, because consistently showing that you prioritize clarity, that you want everyone on the same page, builds deep reliance. People trust that misunderstandings won't be left to fester.
That sounds like it would change the whole feel of a team.
It really does, and it directly feeds into enhancing psychological safety over the long term.
Making it consistently safe to speak up.
Exactly. Knowing these checks are just part of how things are done makes people feel much safer expressing doubts, asking those basic questions, admitting they don't get something.
Which again is vital for innovation and tackling tough problems.
Critical. And over time, you also see the development of a shared language and mental models.
The team starts thinking more alike.
In a good way, yes. More aligned. You get better at understanding each other quickly, anticipating communication styles. The team develops its own shorthand, its own efficient way of talking about common challenges.
Like building team fluency.
That's a perfect way to put it. And think about disagreements. When conflict arises, which it inevitably does, having this established practice of meta-communication leads to improved conflict resolution.
How so?
Because the default becomes trying to understand the different perspectives, clarifying the root cause, rather than just digging into positions. The skills are already there.
So it provides a pathway for constructive disagreement.
Exactly. And in today's world, things change fast, right? New information, shifting priorities.
Constantly.
Well, teams that are good at communicating about understanding are much better at adapting. They have increased adaptability and resilience.
Because they can quickly recalibrate their shared understanding.
Precisely. They can talk about how their understanding needs to shift to deal with the new reality. It makes the team more agile. And because these pipes often involve reflecting on how the team is communicating, it leads to continuous learning and improvement. Teams get better at spotting their own communication glitches and refining how they work together. It's like built-in team coaching.
Self-awareness leading to better practices.
Exactly. And finally, a really important one, more inclusive collaboration.
By making sure everyone's heard.
Yes. By actively checking everyone's understanding, you help overcome barriers, maybe due to different backgrounds, communication styles, confidence levels. It ensures all voices contribute to that shared picture.
That's a powerful outcome. Making sure inclusivity isn't just a buzzword, but is built into the process.
Absolutely. So you see, using these consistently isn't just a quick fix.
No, it's clearly an investment.
It's a real investment in the long-term health, the trust, the adaptability, the effectiveness of the team's collaboration.
So wrapping this up, it seems really clear these placebo pipes, they might sound a bit quirky, but they're seriously valuable tools.
Incredibly valuable, not for the new info they carry, but for what they do.
Right. Fostering that deep understanding, getting everyone truly aligned. It's fundamental for building teams that are effective, resilient.
And ultimately better at tackling whatever comes their way.
And it is pretty amazing, isn't it, how these small, maybe even ritual-like acts of communicating about communication can ripple outwards.
Yeah, impacting trust, safety, even innovation in such significant ways.
It really drives home that point.
Yeah.
It's not just what we say in teams, but maybe even more importantly, how we make sure we're all truly hearing and understanding each other.
Definitely. So for you listening right now, maybe take a moment to think. Are there ways you're already using something like this, maybe unconsciously?
Or how could you start intentionally weaving in some simple placebo pipe prompts? Just small checks focused on shared understanding.
It could genuinely make a bigger difference than you might expect in how your team functions.
And that brings us to a final thought to leave you with. What subtle communication habits might be happening in your team right now? Things you're maybe overlooking. Are they helping build connection and solve problems? Or are they perhaps unintentionally getting in the way?
Definitely something worth reflecting on, that hidden layer of meta-communication in your own collaborative world.